You ever hear of someone walking out of a plane crash without a scratch? Or getting hit by lightning twice and still living to tell the tale? That's not luck. That's something else. Only God decides the final moment. These people weren't on the list yet. In today's video, we're diving into the craziest survival stories where death came knocking, but somehow they walked away. This isn't just survival, they cheated death like magic. Phineas Gage's incredible survival. In 1848, Phineas Gage became a part of one of the most unbelievable survival stories ever. While working on a railroad, he was packing explosives into a rock with a tamping iron when a spark set off the charge. The iron rod shot through his cheek, pierced his brain, and exited through the top of his skull. You would think he wouldn't survive such a terrible injury, right? But shockingly, not only did Gage survive, he stayed conscious the whole time. Even more incredible, he somehow walked away from the scene despite his life-threatening wounds. But here's the twist. What happened next was even stranger. Gage, once calm and logical, became impulsive, angry, and unpredictable. This huge change in his behavior fascinated scientists. His case became one of the most important studies in neurology, showing how the brain affects personality. Phineas Gage's story is still talked about today, helping researchers understand how brain injuries can alter how people think and act. His survival and transformation are a true testament to the power of the human spirit and the mysteries of the brain. Justin Rosen's fight for life in the freezing cold. On February 25, 2015, Justin Rosen faced a nightmare he could never have imagined. After a night of drinking, he passed out in a snowbank with temperatures dropping to -4 dF. For nearly 12 hours, he lay there, completely unconscious. The next morning, when rescuers found him, he was declared dead. His pulse was gone and his body was so cold that even thermometers couldn't measure his temperature. But then something incredible happened. Doctors used a life support system called ECMO to try to save him, and against all odds, Justin's heart started beating again. After being shocked back to life and put on a ventilator, Justin's brain scans showed that everything was normal. A month later, he woke up from his coma. Despite losing his pinky fingers and toes due to frostbite, his survival was nothing short of a miracle. Justin's story is a stunning reminder of how strong the human body can be, even in the harshest conditions. Elijah Gunner's miraculous survival. Elijah Gunner's life changed forever on September 17, 2017, after a night out with friends. He was walking across train tracks in Winnipeg, something he had done many times before, but this time he didn't make it in time. The train hit him. Miraculously, he survived. When he woke up, Elijah thought he had just fallen asleep, but then he realized the horrifying truth. Both of his legs had been severed, one above the knee and the other below. At first, Elijah felt anger and disbelief, but soon he faced his new reality. He didn't hide from what happened. Elijah publicly admitted that his poor choices, like drinking alcohol and being careless, led to the accident. He used his story to warn others, stay off the tracks, because any moment could be train time. Elijah's recovery continues, but his powerful message is clear. Reckless behavior has serious consequences. He hopes his survival will inspire others to make better choices and stay safe. The miracle girl who survived a plane crash. Baya Bakari was only 12 years old when she lived through a nightmare that most people couldn't even imagine. On June 30th, 2009, Yemenia Flight 626 crashed into the Indian Ocean, killing 152 people, including Baya's mother. But Baya didn't give up. She was stranded in the water without a life vest and barely knew how to swim. Holding onto a piece of wreckage, she fought the shock, exhaustion, and fear for over 9 hours, waiting desperately for help. When rescuers finally found her, Baya was in bad shape. She had serious injuries, including a broken pelvis, burns, and wounds on her face. But her spirit was unbreakable. She was flown to France, where her recovery was nothing short of amazing. Against all odds, Baya became known as the Miracle Girl, inspiring millions with her strength and determination. Her survival is one of the most incredible stories of courage, and she remains a symbol of hope for anyone facing the impossible. 14 months lost at sea, the incredible survival of Jose Salvador Alvarena. Can you imagine being stranded in the middle of the ocean for over a year? That's exactly what happened to Jose Salvador Alvarena, a fisherman from El Salvador. On November 17, 2012, he set off on a normal fishing trip, but a powerful storm destroyed his boat. With no way to return and no supplies, he had to survive on raw fish, turtles, birds, and rainwater for 14 months. His nightmare became his reality, trapped far from land with nothing but the endless sea. When he was finally found on January 3, 2014, Jose was weak, sunburned, and barely able to stand. At first, people didn't believe his story, but experts later confirmed that it was possible. He became the only person known to survive more than a year lost at sea. His story is proof of the human will to live, showing just how strong the survival instinct can be when everything else seems impossible. Casey Wagner's lightning survival. What are the chances of surviving a lightning strike? Casey Wagner found out the hard way. On October 26, 2013, during an off-road race in St. Joe, Texas, a storm hit and Wagner took shelter under a small tree. Little did he know that tree would become a target for a lightning bolt. Before he could even react, another bolt hit him, sending a shocking surge of electricity through his body. Miraculously, Wagner survived. A nearby nurse rushed over, fearing the worst, but to everyone's surprise, he was still conscious and breathing. Doctors later found that the lightning had traveled from his right leg to his left hand. The odds of surviving just one lightning strike are about 1 in 750,000, but 2 strikes in seconds? That's nothing short of a miracle. Wagner's story shows the unbelievable power of nature and the strength of the human spirit. Truman Duncan's unbelievable survival. In June 2006, Truman Duncan, a railroad worker from Texas, faced the unthinkable. While guiding a moving train car, he slipped and fell onto the tracks. As the train continued, both of his legs were caught under the wheels and severed. In the moments after the accident, Truman didn't panic. Instead, he calmly called for help, telling dispatchers, "I've been run over by a train, you need to hurry." His voice was steady, despite the unimaginable pain he was in. What happened next left everyone in awe. Truman spent 3 weeks in a coma and underwent 20 surgeries. Against all odds, he survived. He then adapted to his new life with prosthetics, showing an incredible strength that most people could never imagine. Truman's story is proof of the human will's power to overcome even the most terrifying challenges. The miracle of Fourth Man Murph. At 74 years old, Fourth Man Murph had already seen it all as a lumberjack. But in 1984, he faced a terrifying day that would push him to the edge of death. While cutting down a massive tree, it fell in an unexpected direction. A branch hit him hard, knocking him into a ditch. Just when he thought it couldn't get worse, another tree fell and pinned his leg, leaving him in a life-threatening situation. Incredibly, Murph didn't give up. Even with a broken leg and a neck injury, he kicked the running chainsaw away from his neck, freeing himself from the tree. He somehow managed to climb into his truck and drive for help. After a grueling, hour-long drive to the hospital, surgeons worked non-stop to save his life. Against all odds, Murph survived, fully recovered, and lived to 92, often laughing about the day he cheated death and inspiring others with his incredible strength. The Titanic survivor who beat the odds. April 15, 1912, Richard Dick Williams was just 21 when the Titanic sank, plunging him into the freezing North Atlantic waters. Fighting for his life, he struggled to stay afloat for hours in the icy cold. When rescuers finally pulled him out, both his legs were severely frostbitten, and doctors were sure they'd have to be amputated. But Dick wasn't ready to give up. A talented tennis player, Dick refused to let this disaster end his dreams. He pushed himself to walk, determined to restore circulation in his legs. Against all odds, his hard work paid off, and he fully recovered. Dick Williams went on to win the U.S. National Tennis Championship twice, proving that no matter how bad things get, with determination you can overcome anything. Harrison O'Keefe's incredible survival story. Harrison O'Keefe's story is one of the most unbelievable survival tales ever. In 2013, the Nigerian cook found himself trapped underwater for 3 days after his tugboat, the Jackson 4, sank during a violent storm off the coast of Nigeria. The boat went down 100 feet, and Harrison was left fighting for his life in freezing water and total darkness. With no food or water, he managed to find an air pocket inside a ship's toilet where he could barely breathe but kept holding on to hope. For hours, Harrison fought off hypothermia and the deadly buildup of carbon dioxide. Just when it seemed like all was lost, he heard a faint noise. Divers had found him alive. After 60 agonizing hours, he was rescued. His survival is an incredible example of the strength of the human spirit, showing that even in the most hopeless situations, resilience can lead to the impossible. The incredible survival of Jean Hilliard. Jean Hilliard's survival story is nothing short of miraculous. In December 1980, Jean, just 19 years old, was driving through the freezing Minnesota countryside when her car crashed in a remote area. With no one around to help, she decided to walk 3 miles to find safety, but after hours of battling the bitter cold, Jean collapsed just a few steps from a friend's house. When found, her body was frozen solid, so stiff that doctors couldn't insert an IV. Her body temperature had dropped to a dangerous 27 degrees. What happened next shocked everyone. After being carefully warmed up, Jean regained consciousness just hours later. Despite her freezing ordeal, she only suffered minor frostbite. Her recovery was nothing short of extraordinary. Jean went on to live a normal life, always taking extra precautions in the cold. Her story is a powerful reminder of how strong and resilient the human body can be in the face of the most extreme conditions. The exploding toilet disaster. On October 2, 2013, Michel Pierre's day turned into a nightmare. He had been dealing with plumbing problems in his 6-story New York apartment building. When the water supply was finally fixed, Michel went to check if everything was working properly. His only concern was making sure the toilet was running again, but when he pressed the flush button, disaster struck. The toilet exploded with a force so strong that it knocked Michel out cold and left him badly injured. Shards of toilet debris flew everywhere, cutting him deeply. He was rushed to the hospital where doctors stitched up his wounds, including 30 stitches on his face. But it didn't stop there. That same day, 3 other toilets in the building exploded. Investigations showed that the cause was a pressure surge triggered by maintenance work. While Michel's body healed, the trauma stayed with him. The sound of a flushing toilet would always remind him of that terrifying day. The incident led to a recall of over 1,700 faulty toilets, raising serious safety concerns. If you have an older model, it might be time to replace it before a disaster strikes. Michel's story is a powerful reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. The heart that flipped 90 degrees. In 2014, a 48-year-old Italian motorcyclist became part of an unbelievable medical mystery. He was speeding down the highway when he lost control of his bike and crashed violently. When the paramedics arrived, they were shocked. His blood pressure was dangerously low, but there was no heavy bleeding. What really puzzled the doctors was his faint heartbeat. It seemed like his heart had moved positions. The crash caused severe injuries like broken ribs and a punctured lung, which led to air building up in his chest. The pressure from this air caused his heart to shift 90 degrees to the other side of his chest. This made his blood pressure drop and his heartbeat nearly disappear. Amazingly, he stayed conscious. Doctors worked quickly to remove the trapped air, and his heart returned to its normal spot. Miraculously, he made a full recovery. His case stunned doctors and showed just how fragile yet resilient the human body can be. The pigeon that changed everything. One quiet ride turned into a nightmare for Matthew Bray, an experienced motorcyclist from England. As he cruised along a peaceful country road at 50 mph, something strange caught his eye. Out of nowhere, a pigeon flew straight at him. Before he could even react, the bird hit his helmet with full force, shattering his visor and glasses. The blow knocked Matthew unconscious, but his body stayed slumped on the bike, still gripping the throttle. Unaware of what was happening, Matthew's limp hand kept the throttle wide open. The motorcycle sped up uncontrollably, reaching a terrifying 140 feet. It wasn't long before the bike crashed into a massive oak tree, sending Matthew flying nearly 600 feet. With skull fractures, a brain hemorrhage, and broken bones, doctors feared he'd never walk again, but Matthew had a powerful reason to fight. His wife was pregnant. After months of intense rehab, he made an incredible recovery, still in disbelief that a simple pigeon could change his life forever. The spearfishing accident that shocked everyone. On June 7, 2012, 16-year-old Yazer Lopez set out for a fun spearfishing trip with his friend to celebrate their high school graduation. But what was supposed to be an exciting day quickly turned into a nightmare. While checking out their latest catch, Yazer suddenly felt a sharp pain and collapsed into the water. When he came back up, his friends were horrified to see a metal spear had pierced straight through his forehead and out the back of his skull. The spear had been accidentally fired by one of his friends, causing a life-threatening injury. Against all odds, Yazer stayed conscious despite the severity of the injury. His friends rushed him to the hospital, where doctors had a tough challenge ahead. The spear was too long for the medical scanners, so they had to carefully cut parts of it off to perform surgery. Thankfully, the spear had missed key blood vessels and brain structures, giving Yasser a fighting chance. After a 3-hour surgery, the doctors successfully removed the spear. Yasser lost some of his memory and motor skills for a while, but after months of rehab, he fully recovered. However, his spearfishing days were over as the accident left him forever cautious about the sport. The man who survived a steel beam falling from the sky. In 2012, James Crawford was driving his van down a New Jersey highway when something unbelievable happened. He noticed a strange shadow above him, and before he could even react, a huge steel beam fell from the sky, smashing onto his van. The impact was so strong, it ripped off the roof and crushed the passenger side. Onlookers thought there was no way anyone could have survived such a violent crash, but to everyone's shock, James crawled out of the wreckage with just minor cuts and a broken thumb. What caused this bizarre accident? It turned out that a gust of wind had blown the steel beam off a nearby truck, sending it flying onto the highway. This freak accident became one of the most unusual highway incidents ever. James later said that his seatbelt and quick thinking helped save his life. This shocking event led to investigations about the safety of transporting heavy materials and how unexpected things, like wind, can cause major accidents. James's survival reminds us how unpredictable life can be and how strong the human spirit is in the face of the unimaginable. Julian Kupka's miracle survival? On Christmas Eve in 1971, 17-year-old Julian Kupka boarded Lanza Flight 508 with her mom and 90 other passengers. They had no idea their flight would soon turn into a nightmare. Just 25 minutes into the flight, a violent thunderstorm hit and a lightning bolt struck the plane. In a split second, the plane broke apart and Julianne was violently ripped from her seat. She fell an unbelievable 10,000 feet into the Amazon jungle below. Miraculously, her row of seats acted like a parachute, slowing her fall through the jungle canopy. When Julianne woke up, she found herself alone and badly injured. She had a broken collarbone, a sprained knee, and cuts all over her body. With only a small bag of candy and the survival skills her zoologist parents taught her, she managed to survive in the jungle. After 11 tough days of trekking through the wild, she was rescued by 2 loggers. Today, Julianne is a respected zoologist, continuing to study the jungle that almost claimed her life. The man who cut off his own arm to survive. Some survival stories are so unbelievable they almost sound like fiction. Aaron Ralston's story is one of them. In 2003, he was hiking alone in Blue John Canyon, Utah, when disaster struck. An 800-pound boulder fell and trapped his right arm against the canyon wall. With no phone signal, little food, and almost no water, Aaron quickly realized he was in a life or meth situation. After 5 days, he knew only one thing could save him. He had to cut off his arm. The pain Aaron felt was unimaginable, but he refused to give up. Using a dull multi-tool, he tried to cut through his arm, but the blade couldn't break the bone. In a desperate move, he used the boulder to snap his radius and ulna bones. With a twisted arm and excruciating pain, Aaron finally amputated his own arm. After freeing himself, he found a group of hikers who helped him get medical help. Today, Aaron is an adventurer and motivational speaker, proving that survival is about pushing through even the toughest odds. Michael Cassidy's incredible survival story. Sometimes, survival stories seem impossible, but Michael Cassidy's story proves otherwise. After a tragic motorcycle accident where he lost control and crashed into a fire hydrant, the impact was devastating. Michael suffered an open-book fracture of his pelvis, an injury that usually leads to death. But 2 off-duty nurses saw the crash and rushed to help, calling for immediate medical assistance. Michael was rushed to the hospital where doctors worked quickly to stop the internal bleeding and stabilize him for surgery. The road to recovery was incredibly tough for Michael. Despite his severe injuries, including a shattered pelvis and ruptured bladder, his body fought back. After months of physical therapy, Michael regained his strength, though he still walks with a limp and uses an ostomy bag. His incredible survival became a story of resilience. Later, Michael welcomed his first child with his wife, proving that determination can lead to the most remarkable recovery. Dr. Rogozov's self-surgery in Antarctica. In 1961, Dr. Leonid Rogozov faced a terrifying challenge in Antarctica. Stationed at the remote Novolazarevskaya base, he suddenly developed acute appendicitis. Normally, this would require immediate surgery, but there were no other doctors and no way to evacuate. With no options left, Dr. Rogozov knew he had to perform the surgery on himself, despite the dangers. With the help of 2 assistants to hold instruments and a mirror, Dr. Rogozov began the operation. Using only local anesthesia, he fought through the pain, dizziness, and exhaustion. After 2 long hours, he successfully removed his appendix. His quick recovery was nothing short of miraculous, and within days he was back to work. Dr. Rogozov's incredible courage and skill became one of the greatest survival stories of the 20th century. The sneeze that changed everything. One evening, Victoria Kinney was just sitting at home when something shocking happened. A simple sneeze. But instead of relief, it brought intense pain. Her body suddenly went numb and she couldn't move. Rushed to the hospital, the doctors delivered grim news. The sneeze had torn one of her discs, pressing on her sciatic nerve and causing partial paralysis. What seemed like a normal sneeze turned into a nightmare no one expected. Despite 3 surgeries, Victoria's pain didn't go away. The medications only made things worse, causing hallucinations and deep depression. She even thought about ending her suffering, but then came a risky chance, an experimental surgery. It worked. After the surgery, the pain vanished, and just a week later, she took her first steps in 2 years. Her story shows how fragile life can be, but also how strong the body can become with the right help. Morgan Lake's miracle escape. On July 19, 2013, Morgan Lake experienced a nightmare no one should ever go through. While driving on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, a truck driver, Gabor Lavos, didn't notice the cars ahead and slammed into Morgan's vehicle. The impact sent her car smashing into the bridge's barrier, only for it to bounce back and be hit again. The second crash launched her car off the bridge and into the deep waters below. As her car quickly filled with water, panic set in, but Morgan didn't give up. With only seconds to act, she unbuckled her seatbelt, crawled through the broken window, and swam to a stone mound beneath the bridge. Clinging to it for safety, she waited for help. Rescuers found her there, and though shaken, she survived with only minor bruises. Morgan's story shows just how important staying calm and thinking clearly can be in life or medicine. You've just seen people who went face to face with death and somehow walked away like it was nothing but a dream. We call it luck, fate, or maybe even a miracle. But one thing's clear, only God decides the final moment. And these people, they weren't on the list, not yet. If that gave you chills, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe because more jaw-dropping stories are on the way. Until next time, stay safe and remember, life can change in a heartbeat.